And welcome to another episode of the Jason and Bart Show, where we talk about the chaos of the agencies. I almost got that right, I think.
It was so close.
I think it's so close. I might have to write
Each
that
time it gets a little bit better. We iterate well.
We do indeed. Jason, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Last show of the year.
Last show of the year. It's going to be published next year.
Crazy 2022. It will be. I know. I always time stamp us into oblivion. No, things are good. Christmas was good. Hope yours was as well.
It's great. It was, a little time with family, a little break.
Yeah. Winding on down 2022.
Yeah, everybody's trying to do their thing. It's the in-between time is always the weird time for me. It's like you want to kind of take a break, but you can't because you have to finish all the yearly, year things and plan for next year. And we always have a fun topic coming into a new year. Clientele is always fun.
Yeah, this is always one of my favorite times of the year to actually work. I know it's like heresy to say that out loud. Not that I want other people to work. I actually like the fact that most people don't work during this time because I can get a lot of stuff done and do a lot of thinking that I can't normally do when
Right.
You're getting inundated all day long. But yeah, and I'm doing the show standing up today. I'm bringing energy.
We're going backwards. I'm sitting.
You seemed a little down, and you seemed a little reserved today. I thought I'd bring a little something extra to the table.
Clients are fun. I know, and I'm sitting down, which is kind of awkward. I usually stand up. It was more trying to get it together today.
Flip it.
And I'm just I'm not myself. 3-piece suit is not on today.
That's all right. No, we're going to talk a little bit about clients and client churn and client retention. And I want to talk a little bit about, the systems that, we can put in place to kind of provide a little bit of cushion, a little bit of contingency, a little bit of hedge when, some of our clients might leave us in the blink of an eye where we don't see it coming. Bart, you had talked a little bit about this earlier in the week, that you were experiencing something similar, and whether it happens in Q4, which of course is a tough time to have it happen, or right before the holidays where you get notified of something like that, or whether it happens really at any moment where you're not really prepared for it. I guess, what kind of things do you sort of have inherent in your processes, in your business model that sort of help you sort of deal with something like this?
Yeah, I think it depends when, right? Like we're in a strange industry because it's e-com. So like this time of the year, right after everybody rushing and you had kind of watch everything till Black Friday, basically Black Friday on, to Christmas Eve or right before Christmas Eve. And nobody then talks to you till middle of January. It just happens every year. It always has happened, no matter what type of place you're in. We kind of had this issue with like when pandemic hit, right? That March hit and we're like, okay, what now? One of our largest clients was, 75% of our book. And it was scary because nobody knew what was going to happen. Survived that just fine and it went through. So partially, actually, this is why we do retainers and the way we do them. It gives us a little bit of a cushion. It lets us kind of plan out a little more. In the beginning when we started doing them, we still, net 30 days or, it's a month-to-month contract. We kind of no longer do those. Our stuff has changed a bit, which is good because I think a lot more people are doing retainer work. But it also lets us plan a lot in advance. I think doing hourly or billing later, it doesn't really make you plan that well. I'm not sure if that's the best sort of explanation of the way we think about it. Because for us, it's kind of like, okay, client side for 6 months, we know what's happening. We know, month 5, we got to talk to them. What's next? And are we keep on going with them? We kind of watch those things all the time. So our planning is a little different. It's a little more strategic. But things happen, clients just leave. Lucky for us, overall, we haven't had a lot of that kind of stuff happen all at the same time. But having when was pandemic, we were like scared that one of our largest clients is going to leave, and then that's 80% of a book. So like
Right.
that is scary. So you cover that. You try to figure out, how to kind of spread that out. Do you lower them? Do you just bigger book? Those kind of things are sort of there. And then your expenses, right? You start looking at, do we need this piece of software? Do we need this? Do we need that? Like, surprising how many little softwares there are, $100 or $10 a month add up all of a sudden.
Yeah.
You start looking for it. Is $1,000 a month big in the scheme of things? No, but after a while, it is, right. It's an extra whatever we need to spend on.
Yeah. I always joke around. There's nothing like a good little crisis to sort of make you focus on the things you probably should have been focused on all along. Is
Yeah, but you
very,
also for like expense side, like those kind of things, you should be doing that every year and year, or at least every 6 months.
well, of
Just
course.
going through your stuff and going, hey, do we really need all this stuff? Is it actually doing the things we wanted to do?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And now contractually, do you have things in your? I know you do mostly retainer work, or that's certainly a model you're very familiar with. Like, is there something that you would recommend contractually that would maybe I don't want to say penalize clients or sort of leaving without proper notice, or leaving sort of
Yeah.
without
So ours,
fulfilling most of
yeah.
their obligation to your contract?
Right. So our contracts, I mean, you have to give us 30 days notice. Even though it's, some of them they're month to month, you're still 30 days notice. That's just how it works. The fun part about this, once the longer you go client, the knowledge you have, the knowledge transfer is very long. Even though we document absolutely everything, a lot of
Mhm.
times clients do use our tools. So it's like being tied to that. And it's not that we want a time. They have the options of using their own tools. It's fine. It's just a process for us. It works. It works really well. So contractually, it's just, you do usual, 30 days out. Our largest actually, and this was on them, it's a 60, which is fine. That's great for them. They usually say they sign a yearly contract, but they do have a 60-day out. And that's been there since the beginning. And yeah, it's
Sure.
fine. We're always fine with that. They have special terms on what we do with them, but they actually work in our favor at the end of the day.
Yeah, I've seen some language where, um, clients set it up with their customers that, especially on the retainer side of things, sort of an early termination fee. So let's say you have a 6 month engagement, and maybe because they signed a 6 month engagement and not a 3 month or a month to month,
Mhm.
they're getting a better rate, right? Because they're locked in
Yep.
for a longer period of time, and that's pretty typical in these kind of negotiations. It's like, well, okay, so they get the better rate, and maybe after 2 months they decide now they want to get out of the 6 month thing because
Yep.
whatever it is. And something I've seen that some clients have used is they will say, well, the early termination fee is if you end before the term of your contract, then we get 50% of the balance that's left over. So in this case, there would be 4 months left over. So the client would owe 2 more months basically to get out of it. Um,
Yeah,
that has worked pretty effectively for some folks in terms of making sure that they avoid that scenario.
yeah, the way I mean, it's funny because I'm thinking this out loud now. Maybe the thought is to put in like you owe us an extra month or something like that, to break it. Sort of like leasing things. Like you don't have to do half, but it's a net 30, it's a 30, it's a 30-day notice, but you owe us an extra month.
Well, I see
Um,
what a lot happens a lot too is that 50% number is one of those places where you can go where you can negotiate, right? So
mhm.
you can give them something. So you can say something like, you know, uh, we normally default to 50% of the early termination fee. In this case, we're willing to go down to 25% of the early termination fee. But like you said,
Yeah.
maybe it's like leasing an apartment where you put down a 1 month deposit. It's first month plus security or something like that, and that way you get the extra month up front.
Yeah, it would be interesting in the like a just looking at the sort of the logistics of that in a 6 month, right? So like say they work with you for 2 months, they're like, no, we're out. All right, so you got an extra it's 3 months now because they have to do a 30, right? And then you get a fourth month for free type of thing. So you're already like You know what I mean? All of a sudden, you're just losing 2 months, but you literally got paid for 2 that you
Well,
work with. Like, it's a
and I think
weird,
that's,
like,
I
you
think
know.
you want to try to encourage them to fulfill, because from your perspective, the beauty of a little bit higher cost of sale and negotiating the terms of a retainer like this is that in the long run, that a little bit higher cost
Mhm.
of sale and negotiation will, sort of
Yeah.
even itself out over the fact that you have recurring revenue now, right? And you can kind of set it and
Mhm.
forget it. So we talked a little bit about the cash flow side of things, and obviously, I think trying to make sure that you're disciplined in your spending, that you are diversifying your revenue as much as you possibly can amongst your client base, so that if you take this kind of hit, it's not overly
Yeah.
detrimental to your business. What about the biz dev side of things? I mean, how do you see systemically sort of, not that you're going to replace 10% or 20% of your revenue overnight, but if 20% of your revenue did walk out the door tomorrow, and I think this is something that all agency owners and operators should be asking themselves pretty consistently,
Mhm.
when you break out your revenue, take 5 of your top 10 clients out of the picture for a second and just go, okay, over the next 2 or 3 years, if these were to cycle out, like, what do we have in place here? Not even specifically like what do we have in our sales tool right now, but what kind of systems and processes can we put in place that can sort of hedge against that kind of thing?
I think, well, let's start with the maintenance of clients, right? Like, every time something comes up or a contract renegotiation comes up, or for us, we actually have it in our, even if it's a 6-month thing, we look at it every year, every month of, are should they go up or not? Um, but even the contract negotiate, like, contracts, or every year, you still gotta look at, are we doing more? Should we renegotiate? Should we up their bill, like current clients, right? Um, we've been so on that. We should be a lot better, and I think
Mm-hmm.
if going forward, we will be. Sort of looking what we have done, what we're doing for them. Um, that gives it a little bit from your current clients, and then you should be always biz deving the whole time, right? Whatever is going on. Um, some things just take longer to close and do that. When you lose somebody, like, in one shot, yeah, that's literally just picking up the phone and trying to sort of drum up things, or whatever is in the pipeline. Look at those things. Can we, you know, if you lose a lot of it, where you're like, all right, well, we have runway. What happens next? Um, you know, can we make some deals so they're, you know, clients that we can possibly sign now that we can discount, which I don't like doing, but if you have to, and a discount will go a far way to sign a client for 3 months, and then you can up them later, be like, hey, this is all the work and here's the proof in the pudding. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the other thing. Like, you might have clients that are like, well, I don't know if I want to work with you, I don't understand, like, we think you're too expensive. They're like, okay, fine, try us out for 3 months, you know and then be
Well,
like,
something is
guys.
better than nothing, right? If you're in that
Right,
position. Yeah.
right. So you have to be creative. Like, listen, the first year we were in business, we've talked about the story. I mean, we almost lost our full shirt and everything else in the first year. I was joking around. It's beg, borrow, and steal. um, but it's to figure out. I know it's like a stupid thing. Don't beg, borrow, steal. Um, any three of those things is
Every startup
stupid.
owner I know does that.
All right, don't beg, borrow, and steal. But then you go into
And
your
Sam
deep.
Bankman-Fried does all three of them.
Oh, jeez. Uh,
Come on,
don't do any of
I had to
them.
get one reference in. Yeah.
Yeah, don't do any of those. But you go into deep, right, into your network. You figure things out. Look at your pipeline. Look at, do you have anything coming in? Um, you kind of play that game. Some pipelines are worse than others. Some people. It depends on your year. Sometimes you have a bad year of biz dev. Being taken out of conference world for a while sucked. You just get every kind of story has its moments. Like, you need to still have a process that's like very repeatable all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at in the past few years, like, I know we need to kind of clear up our process very well. We've done everything in almost every single department. We've done well. The sales biz dev has to get a lot more tighter. Especially coming up. I mean, this year's gonna be 23 is gonna be interesting.
Yeah, I think that's what certainly seeing that too as companies sort of mature and grow over time, the amount of importance and weight of an intentional focus on sales and marketing. Because again, as you grow and you mature over time, you become bigger, means your clients are maturing and getting bigger also, which means when they're leaving, they can have more of an impact. So your strategic thinking around how to handle those things and have contingencies in place also needs to enhance in terms of its scope. Yeah, it's I think 23 is going to be a very interesting time. I still think a lot of us in the digital agency space are really well positioned. I think like a lot of things right now, it's probably just not going to be as easy as it might have been the last few years. And I know I say that I'm going to get probably killed, right? Because a lot of people were going to tell me it wasn't that easy. But I think in the grand scheme of things, we were a little bit in the right place at the right time. That was helpful.
Yeah, I mean, last 12 years. I mean, you look at the cycle. Like we were right in the middle of the cycle for doing. We're gonna be 13 in May as a company, and there's just a right cycle being there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's not like e-commerce is going away or, any of this stuff is going away. Digital marketing is going away. Enterprise software is going away. It just means that the environment in which you're going to exist in is just a different environment. That's all. And like anything else, those that adapt the fastest to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's changing. Listen, I always like lately I've been laughing at, like Chat GPT, right? Great AI. It looks like it shows off what the capability eventually will be. We got years before big ginormous companies do anything with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's great. Don't get me wrong. It's fantastic. I think it's the future. It's where it should be, taking a lot of that stuff out. But yeah, we got years before we get anywhere near it. So.
Can you hear that?
Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Jason, it's fine. We're doing it live, buddy.
Nah, we never do it live.
We will one day. I'm keeping this in because this is fun.
No, good. So we talked a little bit about, I mean, on the biz dev side, I think, this is again why, not getting too comfortable and having somebody sort of pay attention to the data. I think the data will tell you a lot too, because in a situation like this, you touched on it earlier. How much runway do you have? How long is it going to take you to burn that runway down with this loss of revenue that's now going out the door? What's the worst case scenario? You don't replace any of the revenue. Okay, how long before I have to replace people, right? Because people are always the biggest expense, and that's where controlling expenses comes in. What's the middle case scenario? Okay, I can figure out how to replace 50% of this in the next 90 days. Okay, if I replace 50% of this in the next 90 days, what does that do? Do we have to get rid of people? Do we not? Reassess. And then of course, obviously, like best case scenarios where you're replacing almost all, if not all, of that revenue. But the information you have, your financial and your operational KPIs will tell you what the runway actually looks like, so that you can then go to your team, whoever is running your sales and marketing, and maybe it's you, and go, look, this is our timeline. This is what we have to turn this thing around, or we have to start making, tougher decisions on the expense side.
Yeah. So, no, absolutely. I mean, it's that. I mean, it's also being open and honest with your team, right? Because as soon as they see that's happening, it's like, okay, what's next? What's going on? Like, it's a scary point too, right? As much as, the owners are scared and we're like, we got to figure stuff out. Employees are looking at it and going and chit-chatting and like, hey, what are we doing?
Well, it is very fast that the whole, you and I were talking about this in the fall a bit when we first started recording this show. A lot of the conversation was around all the, in Seinfeld terms, like the hand or whatever that the employees had. And I think now you're starting to see things shift a little bit in the other direction. I still think there's going to be a lot of competition for talent out there. But I do think that you're starting to see the effects of higher interest rates and everything else going on in the world, certainly taking a toll on the economy and on the labor market. And I think you're probably going to continue to see that into the early part of next year. But
I know we're talking about this, but a little interjection in there. I'm having really weird, like, I'm cautiously optimistic about it all.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, here's my thing. You watch all the markets and everything else, and everybody that like once in the like before had an idea, or they hit the right number, or they hit the right wave of things. And I'm talking about, people like what's it called? The guy who was the Big Short was made out of, and all the like big boys, like they always hit it on the money. I don't think anybody knows what to do with this in the current market at all. Nobody, literally, because we've never seen this. Like, everybody is like, no, it's not. It's so all over the place. We're at a 12-year cycle, and a pandemic hit, and then everything else is going on now. We've never seen this. I don't think we did. I don't think it's like nobody actually knows what's going to happen.
I think it's like anything else. I think that there's, and I think this is just the world that we live into, just also within like the media. But I think that we get bifurcated right into one of two camps. That seems to be though, and you can only be like super kind of, I'm just going to look at what's happened in history, and history tells me everything I need to know about what's going to happen in the future.
Right.
And therefore, if I just look at what's happened in the past, it's going to tell me what I need to do now so I can be successful in the future. And then that's one camp. And then you've got the other camp, which is like, this is totally different than anything we've ever seen before. You can't use historical data at all. This is nuanced. Like, this is totally different. It's a whole different world, blah, 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 blah. And the reality, of course, is that it's always something
somewhere in the middle
of those
right.
two camps,
right.
100%. Right. But everybody's got to be
like
an expert. So they've got to pick their extreme in their sort of extreme corner. But
I think you have to look at history and look at patterns and what's happening, but also be able to adjust as it comes at you.
100%.
And you know what? And the current media and social media, everything's going on in the world. It's so amplified at a ridiculous level that,
sure,
I think 50% of what's happening is because of that. People kind of watch the what they want to watch.
Look, the whole thing is a soap opera. Like, it's like the same concept applies. It's like, if I watch a soap opera every day for a month, and then I don't watch the soap opera for 6 months, and then I come back and I watch the soap opera again, I probably can just pick it up kind of where I left off. I'm sure that like the characters haven't really changed that much. Storylines haven't really changed that much. There's the same drama when the same people.
Right.
And that's kind of what this is like. It's kind of like you can get sucked into the vortex. I mean, I do too, right? Of like the news and the news cycle or whatever. Every day is either the greatest day you've ever had, or it's the worst day you've ever had. And I guess for our people out there, I would say 2023 will neither be the best year you ever have or the worst year you ever have in all likelihood. Right?
Yeah.
So
I also think it's like, it's so all over the place. It's one of those, like,
it is. And you can make compelling arguments in all different directions, really, for all different kinds of things. And at the end of the day, I, like you were talking about those guys from The Big Short. I usually use the Warren Buffett example of when he bought Bank of America at like $6 a share or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Like, everybody was telling him, you can't buy banks during the financial crisis. What are you, crazy? Yeah, he's crazy like a fox.
But he's read up. He knows, like, he's been doing this for a hot minute. You know what I mean? Like, but it's you know what it is? This is where the point is, and we've said this before. Numbers don't lie. Numbers do not, and humans do. But numbers do not lie. It will tell you exactly what it is. Everybody's using the big R word. We're still not in it. Everybody thinks we are, but we're not.
And even if we do,
and going to like history, most actual recessions last about 8 months. That is it. It's not 2 years. It's literally 8 months if you look at the numbers.
Plus, it's very rare to have back-to-back down years.
Right. And it's what people think that is it, right?
I mean, here's what I will say the market is, if we're just talking the market, I think we are way beyond ownership and operational stuff. But I think with the market, I think what's interesting is where I think it is highly different than it has been in the past is how tied it is to sentiment.
Right.
In the market, more so than ever, is completely tied to how people feel most of the time. Because I think that more than ever, there are people in the market who, let's just say, maybe they're not doing all their homework all the time. And so I think that there's a lot more of like, well, this is what I heard and this is what I read and this is how I feel. So when I combine those things together, it makes me do this. It creates action X or action Y. And I think that's a lot of what the market is right now. It's so much momentum up and down. There are companies out there who are perfectly good, valid companies, but only because of sentiment, they are getting do I think that they swung too high this way? I do. Do I think that there's some that have swung too far low this way? I do. Do I also think the market is clearing things out? I do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's all sentiment, right? If you look at the stock market, I'm looking at just a market overall, right? Like it is sentiment. You're right. But also the numbers don't lie. And there's good companies out there and there's, and I'm going to kind of challenge you because it is part of what we're talking about ownership, because that directly relates to our work, right? The things we develop for clients. This is what we do. And clients being skittish. Like that's the thing, trying to resign clients. We finally did it. We resigned most of them.
I also think, who, for the audience also, like, who are your clients, right? You and I think a lot of our clients are corporate clients. And I think what goes on Wall Street and what goes on Main Street are two very different things. They usually don't, they're not doing the same thing at the same time very often in those two places. And so if you're dealing with more of your clients are on Wall Street, they're publicly listed companies and all the rest of that, you're going to have one experience. If your clients are, mom and pop shops and stuff like that, which is perfectly great business, right? They may be experiencing a very different economy, right? Than the Fortune 1000 is experiencing right now. So that's definitely, so it's a good point. You know what? I take it all back. It was very relevant. Good job. Good job, buddy.
Good job. No, I mean, that's serious, right? Like we had clients, but we had clients who were very skittish. They're like, it was like, we don't know. And then we did it. But like, you kind of go through these motions of what nobody knows where next year will look like. And any predictions people are trying to do is literally just a prediction.
Yeah, I'll leave you with a perfect anecdote, right? So we have a client in the cybersecurity space who spent a good amount of, just started with us in July, and in half a year they spent multiple six figures with us. And the CFO recently reached out and said, hey, what I realized is nobody on our side was really paying attention to the bills. So I would love to really understand, like, we spent a lot of money, what's going on with all the spending of the money. And what's going on there, right, is that here's the CFO of a cybersecurity company, right? So this person is not going to be overly nuanced when it comes to the value of web development and system integration work and stuff like that, right? So what we had to do is you've got to be able to educate them on the value of the spend. He wasn't pushing back on the spend at all. He just was like, nobody's paying attention to this and I can't explain it. I don't understand what the value is. He wasn't saying there is no value. He's just saying, I don't get it. And I think that is something that we're going to start to see more and more as we head into these times. Is I don't think the pushback is going to be on the actual spend or that they have work that needs to get done. I think where it's going to be a little bit of a slower sales cycle, for lack of a better term, is really educating them as to the value. Like, if you spend $500,000, we're going to be solving a $20 million problem. Right. And being able to talk a little bit and I don't necessarily mean value-based pricing. I mean, just educating the clients on the value of the work you're doing, because I think that they know theoretically they need this work done. But they don't know in detail exactly why. Right. And so sometimes explaining the why is really important. So that's something that I could definitely see us and our client experience or account management team spending a bit more time, even our sales and marketing team spending a bit more time in 2023.
I'm really weirdly excited about that, actually.
Me too.
I'm really, it's just because
that's the crux of the conversation.
Yeah, I think it puts, our whole idea, it's been like this forever now. For us, it's all about the process, which leads into efficiencies, which leads to cost savings. That's what we do.
Right.
Um, and I think that those ideas has been there forever. We just got to push into them more, right? And clients well, wait a minute, where am I spending stuff on? Can I do things I need to do? And what you just said, I think that's where it's going to be there, and that's exciting for me because I can go hit those clients up, go, hey, we can save you money, follow our process, follow what we do, we'll help you through it, and be there. It means you're going to be more efficient. You're actually going to do good process, and you're going to save money. That's the end of that.
That's right. That's right.
And with that, Jason,
Hey,
our show is ending.
2022 in the
Last year for
books.
2022. This was fun. We'll do more shows
It was
next year,
great.
and we're gonna have some guests.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Some celebrity guests.
Celebrity guests. Well,
I'm just calling them celebrities. In their own minds, they are. That's all that matters.
On ours.
Or in ours. That's fine.
All right, Jason. Happy New Year, buddy.
Happy New Year, everybody. Take care.